My first business was a lemonade stand in elementary school. I figured out that when my little sister was at the lemonade stand, we sold a lot more because she was a cute, like 4-year-old. She got older, that model stopped working. Product that they were buying was, I'm a cute little kid. So my first lesson in business was that you're not just selling a tangible product, you're selling an intangible feeling, right? And that was kind of what kickstarted that journey. With Tinker, I've been able to solve a problem, not just make money, but actually address a real need that people have in a community that I'm active in. And also with the Entrepreneurship Club, I've been able to help other students realize their goals, their aspirations in business. And I think that anytime that you are on a mission and you bring other people along with you and you can elevate them, that's going to benefit you with your network, with your reputation, with feeling good about yourself.
Right.
And that's just, I think, the best way to set yourself up is not to just be focused on yourself, but how do we bring others forward?
No, yeah, I really love that. What's up, everyone? We're back with another episode of When Life Gives You Lemons podcast. I'm your host, Ty Davis, joined today by Will Smalley. Hi, Will. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. So happy to be here.
Man, I love that you were able to join us today. Will, do you want to start by giving us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, of course. So I've kind of slided into that entrepreneurship space. In high school, I ran a couple of businesses, and I came to Creighton with that same mindset. Really a period of discovering what does it mean for me to be in the business realm. So 100-mile overview, I started out freshman year by making an app that connects sneakerheads with professionals that clean, restore, and customize shoes. And then that transitioned into a B2B white label model, so business to business under the branding of other businesses, where we performed those restoration services for brick and mortar stores across the country.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. What kind of made you want to become an entrepreneur? Like, what planted that seed in your life?
Yeah. So I've always had that itch. You know, my first business was a lemonade stand in elementary school, and I got a couple key lessons early on. So I figured out that when my little sister was at the lemonade stand, we sold a lot more because she was a cute, like 4-year-old. She got older, that model stopped working. In middle school, I thought I would sell natural cleaning products because I thought that was kind of trendy. So I went around in my little red wagon to all my neighbors. It sold really well the first time. Then after that, they were like, oh, I already have the product, I'm good. Well, I figured out they weren't buying the cleaning product. They didn't care about that. The product that they were buying was, I'm a cute little kid. So my first lesson in business was that you're not just selling a tangible product, you're selling an intangible feeling, right? And that was kind of, I guess, what kickstarted that journey.
Wow, that's really cool. So you want to tell us a little bit about the evolution of the sneaker app and like what it's called and all that good stuff?
Definitely. So a little bit of background information there. I've been a sneakerhead since middle school. I wore my fire red 3s at high school graduation, first day of college, probably college graduation too, if we're being honest. And they needed some work done. They needed a repaint on the midsoles, and I figured out that I didn't know who to go to get that work done. I didn't know who to trust. Would they mess up the shoes? Would they just take my money? And therein lied the problem, because there's so many sneakerheads that needed that work done. And also there's a decent amount of professionals that do that work, but the two were disconnected. So how do we bridge that gap? Problem is, I'm not technical. I didn't know how to code. This was 2022, even less resources available then. So I went through this long process of going to the computer science school at Creighton, at UNO, and finally landing on this platform called Bubble, which was a low-code application that firms across the world used to develop apps on a cheaper, quicker-to-market basis. The first team that I contracted with breached contract, so I was back to square one. And then the second team, we finally got it on the App Store. But then after a while, I realized that I was actually making more money off of this one business client than I was off of the app itself. And so that started that transition towards just doing white labeling for brick and mortar stores, less overhead, less maintenance, and kind of arrived at where I am today, which is more of a hands-off business model that I can take into post-grad.
That's cool. That's cool for sure. No, I've been a sneakerhead my whole life, and I think that kind of that, I don't know, that niche and that business that you kind of got into is really cool. But throughout, the evolution of the company and like the white label deal, what has been your biggest challenge? Like, what challenges have you kind of had to overcome throughout this process?
Sure. There's so much to unpack there. I think a couple key takeaways. One would be that I am my own customer, right? I am a sneakerhead. I'd like to think that I know the market well. I had to accept the fact that I don't know anything. And what that means is that even if you think you have a good grasp on the market, you don't know better than data sets of hundreds or thousands of customers, and oftentimes the proposed product that you bring to market at least needs some tweaks, and that's just the classic founder's dilemma. It's getting over that hump of realizing, okay, I don't know everything about this business. What I need to do is talk to real people, get out of the office, go do that customer discovery, and usually you end up with a different business than you started at. So I'd say that's probably the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, no, I like that for sure. And as the sneaker culture has evolved, and have you, like, has that made you lose your, like, love for it at all? Like, just being involved in that business day to day?
That's a great question. So I think what you're hinting at is there are some storytelling issues at Nike, some quality control issues.
Right.
Absolutely. So the beauty with what Tinker does is that it is emphasizing that reusability of shoes. There are shoes that have gone through there that are from the 80s, from the 90s, OG Jordan, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Those stories live on with the shoes, and that kind of acts against some of the problems that you might have with some of the recent trends in the industry. So I think that's a safeguard where you can go back to that nostalgia associated with your favorite pair of Jordans from back in the day and still be able to wear them in 2026.
Yeah, where do you kind of see this market evolving to?
The restorations market or the sneaker market in general?
Both.
Yeah, so let me start with the sneaker market in general. The biggest problem that is facing it right now in terms of mass market shoes, not specifically athletic shoes,
right,
is that there is a lack of innovation and storytelling. So many brands are relying very heavily on retroing shoes that have had success in the past, but then they're losing market share to your On Cloud, your Hoka that are actually innovating, pushing out new products. So what needs to happen is another boom of innovation in the incumbents. Your Air Max technology, right? That defined innovation for decades. Yeezy technology disrupted the industry. We need something fresh from the big brands to keep them moving forward and not getting their market share slowly nibbled away by young startups.
Right.
And then specifically in the restoration industry, it's, I want to say 9% compounding annual growth domestically. There's a huge emerging market in Asia Pacific and in Western Europe. I think the biggest thing for that is that, one, of course, you have the sustainability push that a lot of younger people feel, but also with the older market, so many older sneakerheads, like you hinted at, are getting fed up with newer developments in the industry with new releases, and therefore they want to fix up their older shoes that have been sitting in a storage unit for 20 years, and that's where the restoration market really shines.
Right. Yeah, and I think going back to like the sneaker industry, like with all these different companies, like I'm sure there'll be kind of a breakthrough new sneaker that pops up here that everyone's just like in all over. I mean,
right.
I can't obviously speak for the companies, but I mean, I'm sure just with everything going on and how many sneakerheads there are in the world, there's got to be something that kind of pops up here.
Yeah, 100%. It's a constantly changing industry, and we always like to think of it in terms of the biggest companies, but that's been eroding. That's not
right.
And I'll give you a great example. So during COVID, and actually starting in the 2010s, late 2010s, Nike really made a push away from the store shelf model into direct-to-consumer on their app, right? They wanted more of a web presence. That worked out fantastic during COVID. They capitalized with a lot of innovations on sneakers. But then post-COVID, when people were returning to stores and Nikes weren't on those shelves, well, you're just going to buy what's at the store. And if Nike isn't there, you take that loss. So what happened? Nike ran back to these retailers with their tail between their legs and said, hey, can we please get back on your shelves, even though we left you out to dry, in the last couple of years. So it's really seeing that hubris is kind of the defining factor for the big companies, and can they step down from that to actually continue to innovate?
Right. And throughout your process of evolving Tinker and all these things, have you had a banking partner at all, or a bank help you like solve certain challenges that you've kind of gone through?
Yeah, so that's something I've actually been looking back, I would do differently. Okay. I started with, I won't name the bank, but a larger bank that really wasn't as flexible with startup solutions, especially when I was just starting out. I think going back, I would have looked for maybe a smaller, more community-focused bank that could have met me more where I was at.
Yeah, and what areas do you feel like banks can help companies like that you have, or like just companies in general, like to help solve those, I don't know, like you say, those big, like you would rather start with a company that's, or a bank that's a little bit smaller than a bigger one?
Right. I think the biggest thing for me is that when you're on a business, you operate on a very tight timeline because no one cares about your business more than you. So when you're waiting on other people to push through, stuff with your line of credit or with your debit card, whatever it is, that meaningfully slows down your time to market as a business. And I think that you can bypass a lot of that red tape with a smaller bank that maybe you have a connection with people that work higher up in the bank directly, so you can deploy your resources faster, and that's crucial in a growth phase.
Yeah, I agree for sure. What has been your favorite part of kind of being an entrepreneur, starting this Tinker business and the white label deal? Like, what has been your favorite part of the whole experience?
Oh, I'm gonna have to think on that one for a second.
Okay.
I think if I had to pick one thing from this experience, so as you probably guessed, Tinker's not a unicorn.
Right.
Tinker makes enough money for me to run it pretty passively on the side and make good money post-college, but not something where I can take a lot of money from that, dump it into investments, things like that. The biggest value that I've gotten out of being an entrepreneur in college is building my narrative. What I mean by that is in the 4 years you're in college, you have a definite time period to establish who you are to employers or partners in the future. Do you go to your classes, get okay grades, and party and call it quits? Or do you build a unique brand for yourself that differentiates you in hiring decisions or really anything in life moving forward? I think entrepreneurship for me has been the outlet that has set me apart for the rest of my life.
Oh yeah, that's really cool. All right, so what would you say is the lemon that you turned into lemonade in your career, public life, personal life, anything like that? What is that lemon that you kind of, turned into lemonade?
That's a great question. Could I give 2 lemons?
Yes.
Okay, so 1, I'll touch on the business. 2, I'll touch on my experience outside of that. The first one I would say is taking what looks like a drawback in my business and redirecting that into a productive avenue. So the drawback would be that I had overinvested in development for Tinker, and as a result didn't have the marketing budget that I wanted to grow the app as quickly as I wanted. And while that represented a drawback for sure, it also presented an opportunity for me to look at where I was getting the most revenue for the least spend, and that was on the business-to-business side, and being able to pivot into a new business model where it seems like, I'm doing something totally different than I wanted to, but at the end of the day, I'm better able to address a market need by being cognizant of that and not blindly pushing forward and also not giving up, but just redirecting my energy.
Right.
So I'd say that's number 1. Number 2 would be still related to entrepreneurship. I came into Creighton as a freshman and saw a lot of potential for infrastructure to support entrepreneurs. A lot of things that I did, I had to pretty much do from scratch on my own. And I took that search that I had in how do I build the network, the resources for my business, and was able to institutionalize with a few other students the entrepreneurship club, the J-Tank pitch event. And instead of being disappointed that I didn't see some things that I wanted to see in the business school, I was able to redirect that into providing those for people after me.
Will, what would you say is the biggest thing that you're going to take away, like as you're graduating from Creighton, like into like the real world now that you're kind of done with college class and now you're kind of going to start really focusing on this business?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I'd take away is not something in relation to what I've achieved, but is how I can bring others along on the journey. And what I mean by that is with Tinker, I've been able to solve a problem, not just make money, but actually address a real need that people have in a community that I'm active in. And also with the Entrepreneurship Club, I've been able to help other students realize their goals, their aspirations in business. And I think that any time that you are on a mission and you bring other people along with you and you can elevate them, that's going to benefit you with your network, with your reputation, with feeling good about yourself.
Right.
And that's just, I think, the best way to set yourself up is not to just be focused on yourself, but how do we bring others into the fold?
No, yeah, I really love that. So now to wrap it up, let's try this Dayspring lemonade that we brought today. You can kind of rank it out of 10.
Okay.
What do you think?
Okay, this is unlike anything I've ever tasted.
Right?
I'm seeing watermelon, orange, apple, lemon.
Do you taste each of them?
I do. I have to concentrate on it, but yes,
Yeah.
I do. That's funny. It's a different taste, and then it's like the aftertaste is more of the watermelon.
Right,
But then
you
it's
kinda- yeah.
yeah. You said out of 10?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. Do I get more after this?
Yes.
10.
There it is.
Would have been a 9, but I'll say 10 for that.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, Will, thank you so much for joining us today and just giving us a look at your business and kind of what you've gone through. And thank you to all of our viewers just for joining us, and we'll see you next time.